Are you just gonna burn down your career and take me with you?
Coin flip?
Get out of here.
What's on your mind today?
Like, I want to change, but I'm not particularly open to make those changes.
I'm trying.
Every time I get rid of one compulsion, another compulsion comes up.
Are you yawning right now? Spoiler alert, I feel like I'm stuck.
Right. How does that make you feel?
Jimmy!
Liz! Hey!
It's 3 in the morning.
I'm sorry.
What's in that bowl?
Pretzels.
The other bowl.
Maybe some painkillers.
Maybe?
There's painkillers in there, yeah.
I have to ask, is this you forever?
I don't know.
Crush a bit, little bit, roll it up, take a hit.
Oh, hey, Paul.
I'm worried about you, kid.
Yeah, I've been grieving here.
You've been numbing.
Stop. You're doing sad face.
This is just face. I have resting dead wife face.
He just kept on going on and on about how dumb I am. But he loves me.
Your husband is emotionally abusive. He's not working on it. He doesn't intend to. Just leave him.
Okay.
I think I can help people if I get my hands a little bit dirtier. Your mom wanted you to scatter her ashes, right? We know what they should do. Don't you ever want to just shake them?
Well, we don't shake them.
I take that back. Run? Huh?
Sounds so unethical.
You're just gonna burn down your career and take me with you.
Coin flip?
Get out of here.
Wait, this is my office.
It took you longer than it should have.
My patients are really thriving. This thing I'm doing is really working. I'm right behind you!
Nobody gets through this life unscathed.
I can't remember Mom's laugh. I can feel her slipping away.
You're faced with a choice. Are you gonna let your grief drown you? Or are you gonna face it, come through the other side?
That's nice to see you have your spark back.
Just gonna leave your car here?
I'm a white guy in Pasadena. The cops will probably just take it back to my house for me.
Must be nice.
Derek, how's it going?
Just walking the dog I didn't want.
My patient moved into her sister's house.
Sounds like the day's off to a great start for both of us.
Hello, Adam.
Hi.
How are you? Brett will be here in a minute.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I just
deeply
have to
ashamed.
say, I listened to a
Oh.
couple of your podcasts. You do a great job.
Thank you.
And I don't know if this is you or somebody else advised you on this, but I love that you picked The Kills as your opening music.
You're maybe the second one ever to recognize.
Oh,
Hi
yeah.
there.
Doing it to
Hello.
death. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi there, Brett. Nice to meet you both.
Hello.
You too, you too. I'm going to take my weird background off right now.
Adam, have you seen them live?
Have I seen what? No,
Oh,
no.
you have to try to go.
I will, and I'm in radio. Like I see a lot of shows. I'm up north of the city now a bit, but I'm amidst a very creative and artistic culture up here in the Hudson Valley, and there's a lot of venues, and I work in radio and music side of radio, so I actually get to go to a fair amount of shows. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, so as soon if I see The Kills, I'm there. I'll definitely.
I mean, any version of Alison Mosshart is fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good to know. We're talking about it. Debbie listened to my podcast, and the opening theme I borrowed from just
It's
a
a
little
good steal.
very, very short, like maybe, what would you say, 10, 15 seconds?
Yeah.
So I think it's
That's
legal.
very borrowed. That's very borrowed. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
Yes.
let me just make a general apology to the world out there and to all the casting directors, because I've been doing this show about film and the film industry for a really long time, and I'm embarrassed to say this is the first time I think I've had on casting directors. It's really is just inexcusable.
Well, we're honored.
No. Yes, we're thrilled that we're thrilled that we're your first. We'll try to go easy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when I watched the series Shrinking, and I was thinking, oh, who would make sense? I was thinking, this show is very specific about this little bubble of people, so it's really all the more important. I mean, it's always important that people have chemistry, of course. That's what you guys are. That's what you have to kind of make sure happens. But this show, it seems like everybody's paired. Nobody has a life outside of like these 8 people. So they don't talk to anybody else. It's kind of, I don't know if people are picking up on this, but it's like they pair off in every scene and they go off and they talk. And but the chemistry seems to be there among all of the different, mixes and matches of the characters. They all have great moments. So I don't know. So I am curious to know the process for casting Shrinking and how that all came about.
Rhett, would you like to start?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think,
and then you can interrupt, Debbie. And by the way,
I'm
we
so
should
good
also.
at that. How did you know?
You guys I should mention, have a company. Should have said this at the start. And it's called the Romano Benner Casting.
Romano Benner Casting. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we've been together, I was going to say longer than my children have been alive, which it's a long time because I have almost a 20-year-old. So no, but
me too.
So there you go. Yeah, well, for Shrinking and because this is new for you, I'll just say for any pilot or any new show that gets together, we're sent a script. Usually we have discussions with the producers in terms of what they're thinking of in terms of prototypes for the characters. And then from there, we start to put lists together, reach out to agents and managers, and start to audition people, see who will audition, who won't audition. Obviously with Shrinking, this was a particular case like almost all shows found themselves in because of the pandemic and the lockdown. And so everything was done virtually. Which presents its own challenges, and there's some great things about it, but certainly there were challenges about that as well.
Yeah,
for this in particular, Jason came attached already, so that was the first piece of casting that was in there, and then we just proceeded from there, putting this group together.
I guess this is where Debbie interrupts.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, in essence, we started with the role of Paul, because I think that everyone felt like we needed a big name there, and it was a juicy enough role to get somebody great, but it wasn't going to take up, 5 days of their work week. So hopefully we could entice somebody into a lovely supporting role. And Brett and I made a wonderful list that had all those pie in the sky names. And we were thrilled to make a list finally that we wouldn't be laughed out of the room for putting a Harrison Ford or somebody like that.
Did you put Harrison Ford on the original list? Can I ask? You did?
Yes.
Were you thinking? How did you? I mean, were you already aware that he was open to doing a series at the time? What makes you think that Harrison Ford, one of the biggest movie stars, who has multiple
He's
franchises,
the real deal, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Han Solo, Indy.
When you make a list, you really want it to encompass all the names that your producers could spit back at you and say, what about them? You want to be ahead of the game. So yes, we put Harrison down. In a previous interview, somebody asked if Bill came up with the name or he came up with that idea from our list. And we don't know the answer to that. And, I've never asked Bill that, but, he's someone who definitely should be on the list, even if the answer, once we check availabilities, is not interested, just to know. So it was a long list, and they plucked like 6 names off of it of people that they wanted to know specifics about. And then Bill spoke up and said, I want to go after Harrison. I, know him tangentially, and I'd like to, see what happens. And we were thrilled, and he said we were going to have to be patient, and it was such a pivotal role, and he believed in it so much that we just ran with it.
Okay, so I have a question. So, and like, explain to the process once you have identified who your ideal, actor is for a role, like the case with Harrison Ford. Do you guys get a chance, or is that where? How much further do you go? You talk to their representative and then navigate all the scheduling issues, right?
Yes.
Well, yes, we do the initial stuff, but for example, like Harrison Ford, we're not sitting in a room if they take a meeting with Harrison Ford. And there's points in this when, for example, jumping ahead to someone like Jessica, those actresses, we'd set up some people to go into meetings with the producers. And we didn't sit on those because we just felt like there's enough eyes on them already with the producers. It's better that they have a more intimate kind of setting. But certainly when you're getting into a supporting cast, like Lakita and Luke, we're in those, and we're certainly reading people, because that's when it comes from going through auditions and starting to actually read people to bring into them. So it all depends what the role is and what the role merits. Somebody like the Paul role, or even like Gabby, you could start with people who may not read and certainly are just going to be in an offer situation. And then you ask the question because you hope they'll sit down with producers, because most producers want to get a feeling for the actor or actress to see what they're going to be like. So
I know. Do you have like a backup, like a plan B ready to go? I mean, Harrison Ford.
Back to Harrison, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like just because we started out of the gate. It could be any of the central roles. You had, I know you had you said Jason already attached, so this was his show. He's the guy, and then it's a matter of creating like a really stellar cast here, because this show really is spot on. I mean, you and then there's some interesting casting choices, which it's like, oh, that guy, I haven't seen him in a while, and he's great, super funny. Age is really kind of, done. It seems age really makes people funnier. I just think that they should stop.
Are you talking Ted? Are we talking Ted?
I know, it has to be, right?
Yeah, I was talking because it was like, and then I was watching a movie with my we watched Shrinking together, but we watched some other thing, and I said, "You see that guy? That's is it? What's his character's name in the series?
Derek.
Eric.
Derek.
Sorry. And of course he was on Happy Days. He's been around forever.
I was gonna say, be honest, you were watching The Love Boat.
By the way, you don't get better casting than The Love Boat.
I mean,
if you're a retired Hollywood, actor from the.
That's the ultimate episodic casting, for sure.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Seriously, we're only appreciating it now. I mean, at the time we were just like, wow, great.
Yes, it's very true. I mean, that's an incredible. If you think about that, that particular show, and as a sidebar, like just going from being a A-list Hollywood actor and then kind of having to I mean, I don't know if they thought what they were thinking when they were on The Love Boat, but I mean, because I know we were joking, but I'm just thinking about casting and what, but I guess it was a lot of visibility anyway. So
Yes.
Harrison,
Don't forget Fantasy Island, similar.
Oh no, and there were a bunch.
Exactly.
There were a bunch. Those just were the two successes. So because I'm thinking, by then Harrison Ford got really incredible timing, comic timing, and there's I wonder if you have like a few other actors in your pocket, and did they, right? Because the character was written roughly, I'm guessing, retirement age-ish, right? He has Parkinson's. This particular character, he's dealing with his grown daughter and grandchildren. So
Yeah, we had some very solid backups that Brett and I kept sort of circling back with their agents.
Bill Murray said no. No, I'm kidding.
Sorry.
Bill Murray said no.
I'm trying to get wholesome.
And yeah, we just kept tabs on these people to make sure that they were still available, while at the same time not promising too much.
Okay,
Which is,
so you do reach out to them?
The agents, yeah. And
the agents.
Yeah, no, the actor, the talent probably isn't aware that, because we're not to that point. So they're not going to call their client and say, we're getting heat on you for shrinking, because they're just, it's a cursory call to say, we're just checking in to see what's going on. And, that's kind of how it
they're
works.
high on the list, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Keep the fire alive, so to speak.
And then when it comes to fleshing out, let's say, the supporting character roles, are you you guys have to have, I'm guessing, just a huge number of relationships with not just representatives, but maybe already with actors as well? Or do you keep, maybe you don't go to the act, maybe you don't, maybe it's just less complicated not to deal with actors at all?
I think
directly.
it's when it comes to auditioning and all of that, it always goes through the agent and the manager. If there's a situation where maybe somebody passes and you want them to reconsider, or you're asking them to do something that they're not used to doing, and we know the actor, we would pick up the phone, but we don't know every actor. And, yeah, I mean, sorry. I think some people think that after doing this for 30 years that we would know everyone, but we don't. And, I think that the part that Brett and I love so much is casting the actual roles, where you read people and you go through the process with people, and, you end up with a Lukita and a Luke in those roles that, really just shine and embody every element of the character that you could ask for and more, surprise you. That's the best.
That has to be make it a very worthwhile experience when you're surprised and things just click in ways you couldn't imagine. That has to be very gratifying, I'm guessing, right? When you see that.
And then we were lucky enough, like for this process, Jason was exceedingly and extremely generous. He wanted to read with everybody he could read
really
with, especially in regards to his daughter, and for Luke's role as well.
That makes right.
So, and when I say read with everyone, bear in mind we're winnowing it down. Debbie and I are going through a slew of auditions and then sending them a certain number of choices, and then all the producers would weigh in, and we had quite a few on this weighing in. And then they'd come back and say, well, we'd like to see in person, online in person, these 5 to 10 people, perhaps even, I don't even know if we got that many at times. And then we would go in and Jason would read with them. So, and it was a great chance to see how people interacted. And Jason was great about, doing what was on the page, but then also improvising with them a little bit and seeing how they responded and kind of getting a feel for them. Mm-hmm. So all of that was so worthwhile. And it's such a testament to both those two actors who Debbie mentioned, Lukita and Luke, that both of them, as good as their tapes were that we saw, watching them with Jason, it was all like, it was undeniable when you really, and it all just so came to life. It's cool to watch, and knowing that it could work online. There's the one thing that we miss very much is being in the room with an actor, because you do build relationships with people, and that is something that we do miss. There's also a certain chemistry that you do feel that in the room. And we will say, surprisingly, it does translate to what you're watching when we're doing it in a Zoom context. But there is something, the downside is you can't turn to the person next to you when you're in the room and be like, do you feel that? Do you feel that? You know what I mean?
You have to go like
exactly. You're all like typing furiously while you're watching, getting text messages saying, that's really good. Can they do that? You know what I mean? So
but why can't you go back to in person, or is that the plan? I don't know.
I think, look, our in-person thing is kind of dictated by the studios. Unfortunately, I think some of the stuff now is they've seen that it works, and it costs a lot of money to put, us into offices and all of the stuff that
Pay
entails,
for all the transportation and and then, you know, catering
all of that.
potentially and all this. Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
I mean, maybe someday, yes, I'm sure someday we will go back to being online.
Yeah.
I mean, being in person, but for now, I think, again,
Well,
unfortunately, this is
you
what it
guys are to blame in part because your show is so well cast and there's so much chemistry that you're like a prime example of when it works not to do it in person. I mean, you really
We're
did
a
have.
prime example of luck. And
Well,
so
exactly.
I don't know. I'm not a big believer in luck when it comes to talent. I think I think you guys probably have just developed a really great sense, you know, gut.
very nice.
You know, well, I mean, so yeah. And what are some of the other projects you guys have worked on for the audience out there?
Well, we've done a lot with Bill. We started Bill Lawrence. Our first job with him was Scrubs. And just to loop it back into the McGinley world, Ted McGinley was almost Dr. Cox, and it ended up being John McGinley. So that's why you talk about like longevity with an actor and a relationship. And, you know, there were other little blips here and there with Ted throughout the time from Scrubs to Shrinking, where we saw him and he was always a front runner and he always surprised us and he was always willing to do whatever he needed to do to get the job. And when we got to this role, we just called Bill and we were like, come on, Ted would be amazing. Let's not torture him anymore and like give him a reward, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so luckily everybody was very into that.
Yeah, no,
we've done a lot of other comedies. That's like the sort of niche that we fall into. We love drama. We love gritty drama. Like Brett and I used to salivate when we would watch The Shield and wish that we could cast something so gritty where you'd probably walk out into your waiting room and like be scared. But we don't really get called for those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's part of doing something really well. The downside is you're not often given the opportunity to do other things that you haven't proven yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's something that I think a lot of people face, and you know, people. I mean, especially this industry, because if people want sure things as often as they can get them. Hence the world of sequels and reboots and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So this series seems like it's going to have quite a lifespan, possibly.
We hope
from your mouth.
Yeah, well, I'm putting it out there. And one thing I forgot to ask before, which I was, is are you involved in any of? You're not. I'm going to guess you're not involved in the what is it called? Not the financial side of it, like in terms of people's pay, right, at all. Well, so you know who to consider, maybe like who would be.
We talk, first of all, it's the industry, the business model has changed so significantly that, for example, we can't ask what someone's been paid or any of those kind of things.
Sure.
But any of the series regulars, all of that stuff is negotiated with business affairs. We don't have anything to do with that. We're only called into play with when the show is up and running, you have a series, we are like given a budget per episode that we know that we're working with. When a cast list comes out or when we start casting, we know what we have to, the constructs of kind of what we have to work with and how much we could potentially be paying people. And, you know, you have a big spread when you're dealing with somebody who has, you know, who are seasoned or kind of, you know, big, like Heidi Gardner is on Saturday Night Live and she's kind of in, you know, a thing right now. So, but all of these things, you kind of have to ask your producers, okay, what are we thinking of paying? So that's how we're involved with the financial and the, you know, we deal with agents in terms of that and billing for the guest cast. But in terms of series regulars, all of that's negotiated with the studios.
I'm just like, I'm making sure that I know when you mentioned somebody who they are, and I didn't know who Heidi was. I just like checking the cast as you speak. Sorry.
The guest cast is an involved thing in that for this show, they definitely were looking for, you know, some flashy names. So if there is a situation, I hope I'm addressing your question with this answer. If there is a situation where an actor who our producers want exceeds the budget, then we do something where we go to the studio and they go to the network and they ask for something called breakage, which is above the budget. And so then that all gets worked out. And either the network says they'll help, like Apple, or they say, you know what, I don't know that warrants that. So we go back to the representative and say, like, this is the best that we can do. And it's, you know, it's a negotiation.
Is it your sense working in serial or episodics these days, because there is such a plethora, such a great number of shows, and is it that the names, the casting, big stars, well-known or hot actors, that it's really essential in order to get attention, or is it still kind of, can it be concept based? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the material, but I think maybe the networks are looking for a little of both. And like we had Jason, and then to get Harrison, that was like above and beyond. And the rest of the cast, I mean, the thing that you hope when you're putting a show together is that you have multiple elements that will pull people in, and maybe when they're watching, they will fall in love with additional people that they didn't know. And
well, I think that's definitely a case here. Yeah,
that's what's happened here. And like, what an incredible ride Brett and I have been on with the show. We're so thankful.
It's just it showcases each week people's or actors rather, their comedic talent. You know, everybody. It's like it's just one of these cases where you were just very lucky. You have these amazing comedians. Everybody seems to have really very strong timing, and it's so.
Yes, but let us not forget that the writers are phenomenal. I mean, just the construct of the season itself and the arcs and you know what you were talking about in the beginning about how there's such interplay between all of the series regulars and people end up in scenes with different people. That is like signature Bill Lawrence. It happens when we did Cougar Town with him. That started as a show about a woman who, you know, was recently divorced and, you know, going into, a single person's life in her 40s and, you know, was going to go after the young guys. And after like 6 episodes, it really just became about the people in the cul-de-sac.
Right.
I think that's why everybody loved it, and a lot of wine.
And that is a writer's, they have to have the ear for that to see what is working and maybe some things they have to dispense with because maybe they're not working. And I would have brought up the writers, but you didn't cast the writers. So I wanted to try to give you guys all the glory.
Well, Bill in particular, because we worked with him a lot, but I think so many writers do this. They also find out what they have and they can lean into that and they start to write for those particular people's strengths. And, you know, like a good example of that is like, look, you know, Krista Miller, who, you know, is Bill's wife, and we've worked with her on a number of shows because she's been in a number of those shows. But I think, you know, we've agreed across the board that this is by far the best thing she's ever done because she gets such an opportunity to show so many different facets of a character that she hasn't gotten to do before and to show a vulnerability that she's never gotten to show before. So that, you know, 15, 20 years ago when she did Scrubs, you know, it was just more arch and that wasn't where it was yet. So that's almost too such a testament to the writers as well. And certainly Bill knows that actress extremely well. But so many of the rest of them, you can start to say, okay, this is what's in their wheelhouse and let's lean into this for them. And he's always done such an incredible job of doing that and shaping that. And I think any writer's room for any show really starts to learn their actors really well. So, but again, we got really fortunate out of the gate with a group of actors who were so talented and able to, as you mentioned earlier, kind of work in any combination that then these writers could say, okay, we'll write for these two on this episode and then move to these two and we can mix these two up. And I never would have thought going into this that Michael Urie and Harrison Ford would have been doing scenes together. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's the kind of thing.
Well, they're some of the funniest, it turns out, right?
Yeah.
And it's a true ensemble film series, excuse me. And, you know, I guess that's a component of that type of scene structure, you know. right? It's all about the characters and interacting, and it's great. It's the name of the show, of course, is Shrinking. People can watch it on Apple TV Plus, and pretty certain. I don't know. They didn't announce yet about the second season, or they have.
No, they
yes.
didn't announce. We're second season. The writers have been
right.
back.
That's
So
why I said
hopefully-
they've announced for a second season. Hopefully sooner than later, but only when. But your guys, you're still active because there's probably going to be new characters, right? New at least new patients, right?
perhaps, yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
When you're gonna lose.
Just so
And-
you know, Adam, anyone who speaks, that is who we cast.
Okay.
So we're totally like episode to episode.
All right. So, and if you ever have a reason you need somebody who happens to talk into a microphone,
Great.
you know,
That's exactly it.
I will read for you guys. You don't want to cast me.
We'll add you to
You'll
the
go right to
list of
producer.
people who ask us.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and
I'm
then we'll
not the
put like,
first.
that's exactly right.
No,
Offer
I'm so sorry,
only.
no.
Right. That's what
He's very high maintenance, and his quote is very high. So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out. You're both really great, and I would look forward to any opportunity for us to do this again.
That's great. We
That would be
appreciate you reaching
wonderful.
out. This was great.
I learned a
Thanks
lot.
for having us.
Yeah, no, I learned quite a
Anytime,
bit.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, good luck with season 2, S2, and yeah, I'll be watching.
All right.
Great.
Be listening.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Right. Right. Have a great
Bye.
day.
You too.